Good evening, everybody. I'm very excited to be spending the evening here with you talking about our webinar round 2. First, we talked about sports nutrition, focusing in on soccer. Today, we are going to be talking about sports soccer nutrition, really diving in deeper when it comes to recovery and injury prevention. So, I am Yvette Waters. I am Raley's nutrition strategist and brand influencer. I am a registered dietitian, and I actually have my master's in sports dietetics, so I am a sports dietitian. I grew up playing soccer, so I absolutely love being able to chat with you today, and definitely could have used this advice growing up because I was injured often. So really excited to dive in. To start, the goal of this webinar today is we're going to be talking about proper nutrition and how it can help you recover and prevent injury. Some of our objectives, we're going to be talking about why sports nutrition for soccer players is so important, but also we're going to be diving into sports nutrition and its role in recovery, so we're going to be learning about the 3 R's, and then also helping to reduce the risk of injury or getting you back to playing quicker and faster. Okay, so how I like to always start, we talked about this the first time, was foundational nutrition. Why is sports nutrition so important? There's so many reasons. It helps to improve and support regular growth and development. You're definitely in the years of growing bigger, taller, stronger, and nutrition is huge for that. It also helps to achieve optimal performance, so helping you play at your best at all times. It helps to reduce risk of injury, which we'll dive into, reducing recovery time between competition, improving physical and mental health, and then always very important, helps to create those good eating and drinking habits throughout your life. Okay, so let's dive into recovery when it comes to sports nutrition. You know, recovery in soccer. So when it has to do a lot with fatigue or tiredness, depletion, and what that means, so why you get really tired, kind of like Ronaldo leaning over right there, has to do with depletion of muscle energy or glycogen, like we talked about last time. Those glycogen stores that are in your muscles, when those get depleted, you become very tired or fatigued. Muscle damage, dehydration, or just central fatigue. So what that means is literally your brain, your spine, your body is tired. This happens often in soccer, so towards the end of that 90-minute game, it has been found that players tend to sprint less and cover less distance, especially if you're playing that full 90 minutes. And then after games, it has been found that sprinting and jumping capacities are compromised, so you do not run as fast and you don't jump as high. And muscle functionality is decreased. So you might be telling your legs to run somewhere and it's just not wanting to. So you're literally just really tired. Recovery after training and games is really, really important for optimal performance, so meaning you want to play your best at all times. And that especially is really, really important when you have multiple games in a week or a lot of games or a tournament coming up. So nutrition supports recovery from that fatigue, providing those carbs, that fluid, that protein, and a little bit more, which we'll be diving into. And, you know, I'm going to be giving you some general tips, but recovery strategies should really be individualized to the player. So learning what works for you in your recovery, and when you're testing some of your theories, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, do that when you're in your training days, not right before a competition or right after a competition. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the 3 R's. This is crucial when it comes to recovery. First is refuel. You want to restore those energy stores, so refueling those muscles with that quality carbohydrate. Then there's the repair. So you want to recover and repair those damaged muscle cells from impact. So think a quad, somebody else's knee goes right into your leg or your quad, or an elbow goes into your shoulder. That causes muscle damage. So you want to repair and recover that. And that comes from consuming or eating and drinking high quality protein, which we'll go into. Then there's rehydrate. You want to restore your fluid balance. So when you sweat a lot during the game, you want to rehydrate with those fluids and those electrolytes that you have lost during that workout. So focusing in on the 3 R's, refuel, repair, and rehydrate. Okay, to start, refueling with carbohydrates or carbs. You know, soccer players, their optimal playing performance is really, really important and largely dependent on muscle carbohydrate stores or energy stores, those glycogen stores that we talked about that first time. When you eat a lot of really good carbohydrates, your body is storing and holding on to that energy right before your game. Your body's going to use that energy during that game. So think of it, when your glycogen is increased through a good amount of carbohydrates in your diet, you're literally going to run faster and further, which is what we're looking for. You know, after you play that game or in that training session, you're tired, your muscles are depleted, you don't have enough that energy anymore, so you need to refuel it. And that's where you're replenishing with those carbohydrates. So you're eating and drinking those carbohydrates to focus in on that recovery and that like overall increased exercise capacity. So getting ready for the next round. There's a good rule of thumb here. So this is when you have your body weight divided by 2 equals the amount of grams of carbohydrates that you're looking to get in your meal after you work out. So if I'm about 150 pounds, you divide it by 2, then that's looking for, you want to get about 75 grams of carbohydrates in that next meal. So having a lot of whole grains, fruits, and vegetables ready on that plate after you train or have a game is crucial, and that'll help you refuel. So then we have repairing. Protein's the star when it comes to, that we're going to be really talking tonight when it comes to recovery and for injuries as well. So you want to, when you're exercising, your muscles do a couple of different things, which is kind of confusing. So exercise will increase both muscle protein breakdown and also muscle protein synthesis or muscle building. So think of it this way, as you're running or as you're lifting weights, your muscles are getting these little tears in them, so that's the breakdown, but it's also allowing for blood to go in, for fibers to kind of rebuild, so you are tearing down your muscles a little bit to build them stronger over time. And protein is huge when it comes to building those big, strong muscles. When you don't eat enough protein, overall, your protein balance goes negative. And if you have that negative protein balance, that means you have lower muscle mass, so your muscles are not as strong as they should be or could be, and that's really, really important and key to your soccer performance. And there's another thing when it comes to protein, which is when impact happens. So we look at that picture, those guys both have their eyes closed. There's definitely going to be some impact occurring there. When that foot goes into the guy in the white's calf, that's a impact, so that's muscle damage that occurs. And protein is really important to increase that healing. So you need to eat and drink more protein to heal from that impact. So what are the types of protein? Well, we have animal protein, and we're going to be talking about leucine. If we look at this middle sheet right here, we have amino acids, which are a couple of the little dots. They go to they all come together and they form into a line, which is peptides, and then they all kind of circle into a ball, and that's what creates protein. So amino acids are the building blocks to protein. Leucine is an amino acid. So leucine is known because it is it's that star player to increase muscle protein synthesis or muscle building. So animal protein, you're thinking fish, meat, poultry, eggs, dairy. These have a lot of the amino acid leucine in it, so will help with muscle building, and that's what you're looking for. If we are a vegetarian or a vegan and we want to focus in on plant-based protein, it's important to know that plant-based proteins contain less of the amino acid leucine. So what that means is you need to eat a little bit more to be able to maximize that protein building or that protein synthesis. And that comes from legumes, beans, nuts and seeds, soy products, quinoa, and whole grains. Those are those plant-based proteins. You just need to eat more to maximize that amount of leucine to be able to get that muscle building. Okay, so now what type of, how much protein should I really be having? really what we're looking for is overall goal is you want to have protein is that key ingredient or nutrient after that game or that hard training session to help get you in that positive overall protein balance. We want to make sure we don't have negative because that decreases muscle mass, right? So a couple of tips. So we're going to be looking at that green kind of diagram down at the bottom. After that match or that game or that intensive training, immediately after, post-exercise, you want to be, that's where you can get that protein shake in. And you're looking to the optimal amount of protein. You're wanting to maximize your muscle building is right around about 20 to 25 grams of protein. Then there's what type of protein should I have? Well, one of the best is whey protein. Whey protein is one of two of a milk protein. There's whey and then there's casein. Whey is crucial for after exercise, and that's because it's considered kind of the best type of protein because it's quickly digested and absorbed. So that means after you drink that protein shake of whey, which we kind of see the Raley's whey protein powder up there, it goes into your stomach, into your bloodstream, straight into your muscles very quickly. And whey protein tends to have a good amount of the amino acid leucine in it, is which we're looking for. That's that star. We have seen that whey protein also helps to increase muscle protein synthesis in compared to things like soy protein, casein, rice, pea, any of those type of protein powders. Whey protein does come from dairy, but for our folks who may be lactose intolerant, actually, lactose is the sugar that is in milk, not the protein. So for ones who are lactose intolerant, it can be an opportunity to have whey protein, and it won't cause that GI, your stomach to be all upset like it does with a lactose intolerance. If you do have a milk allergy, however, it is important to stay away from the whey, and that's always important to check in with your doctor, kind of see some opportunities, but that is the best form of protein post-exercise. Then it's important to keep eating that protein throughout the day. So making sure you're getting right around about 20 grams of protein with every 3 hours or every time you're having a meal. Make sure you're getting protein in there. In the morning, if you have 3 eggs per se, that is 18 grams of protein. That's a really great start. Then right before bed, or your last meal before you go to bed, make sure that contains protein as well. Good option. This is when you have the casein protein, the other type of milk protein, whey, and then there's casein. And casein protein is slowly digested in the body. So if you have some cottage cheese or some Greek yogurt before you go to bed, while you're sleeping, that casein protein is getting absorbed into your body and going into your muscles and starting to repair throughout the night. So that's a good rule of thumb when it comes to how much protein and how often you should be having it throughout your day, and that's really going to maximize your recovery, that repair, and building those muscles up. Okay, so then we talk about what about fat? Well, fat stores, especially in soccer, is not the main source of energy when it comes to games and training. Your body in soccer will really focus in on getting those carbohydrates and that protein source when it's looking for those to burning that energy. So because of that, fat is less of a focus to eat when you're looking for functional recovery. It is important to note, however, those high-fat diets, so think keto or ketogenic, Atkins, high-fat diets such as that lowers or reduces the amount of carbs and protein that you're eating in the diet. So for our soccer players, that's not really advised. You want to make sure to have those carbs and have that protein. At the same token, extremely low-fat diet is not advised either. It's definitely not one of those eating fat makes you fat kind of scenarios. You want to have the general recommendations. You want to have about 20 to 25% of your daily value still having those fats. You want to focus in on those healthy fats. So olive oil, flaxseed, avocados, nuts and seeds, fatty fish, nut butters, things like that. That's what you're really looking for because they're still really important. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. But there's definitely more research that's needed when it comes to recommendations of fat intake after soccer exercise, especially when it comes to recovery. Okay, so then there's the fluids, the rehydration, and you're really wanting to have that because dehydration, it can cause a lot of things. It can cause decreased performance, so you're just not playing as hard or as good as you want to. It can cause fatigue, tiredness, cramping. It can also cause like confusion. It can cause a lot of things, so you want to make sure that you're not dehydrated. So how do you restore that fluid balance after playing that game or training? Think of it this way. If you sweat more, drink more water. During those hot days, I know it's kind of chilly out today, but it's been really warm. During those hot days, if you're sweating and breathing really hard, drink more fluids after. You're also looking for electrolytes. So if we look over to the side here, this diagram, it shows sodium, it shows chloride, magnesium, calcium, and potassium. Those are all some different minerals, but they're also electrolytes. For our soccer players, you want to make sure that you're getting those in after you play your game or training and practice. You really want to focus in on sodium, so like salt. You want to have salt when you're drinking your other fluids, because that will allow for your body to hold into that water, and you want to hold that water in your body. So when it comes after you train or your game, having a little bit of a sports drink or having some food that has salt in it along with water, so think of like pretzels, is really great to have. Then, a good rule of thumb is within 2 hours of training, you want to make sure to drink about 16 to 24 ounces of fluid for every pound lost during exercise. We talked about this the last webinar. I know that's a lot of numbers and pretty sciencey. So just really focus in on drinking a few of these guys after this, about 16 ounces right here. So drinking a few bottles of water after you train or after your game is really important to rehydrate, and that'll help with your recovery. So when you're playing next, if it's even a couple hours or the next day, you're going to feel really good. Okay, so we talked about the 3 R's: refueling, repairing, and rehydrate. But what does that look like? So think of it as a fueling station about 15 to 60 minutes after exercise. This is when you're having something a little bit smaller, but getting that protein and those carbohydrates in there. So if it's like chocolate milk and some nuts or seeds, that can be a really good way. Protein shake can be a really great way. Having some Greek yogurt, some granola, and some berries, or even having some just apples and nut butter or cheese and pretzels. Having some of those snacks right after you play, but it's small, not a whole meal, but getting some of those in is really great. Then, about when you're having your first meal post-exercise, about 3 to 4 hours after your game or after you train, that's when you want to have that bigger meal and making sure you're getting a lot of that protein in, about 20 to 25 grams. You want to get those carbohydrates in, so having like an egg wrap, which eggs, huge thing of protein, a tortilla that has the carb, like a whole wheat tortilla has the carbs, Greek yogurt, fruit, or really having like a stir fry or a fiesta bowl, something like that, making sure you're getting vegetables, whole grains in there, and protein. That's going to really help. So get your bigger meal 3 to 4 hours after and make sure there's lots of fluid on the side. We talked about this last time, but to reiterate, this is what your plate can definitely look like when you're training really hard, making sure you're getting a lot of good, high-quality carbohydrates. I'm talking the whole grains, vegetables, fruits, making sure you're getting that protein in, still getting those healthy fats, and that big glass of water in there is really, this is what your plate should really look like. Okay, so we talked about recovery. Now we're going to dive into like injury prevention. I'm giving you some stats to start. So this is a big old word to start, but injuries in soccer. Musculoskeletal injuries often occur in competitive soccer. So what exactly does that mean? That means injuries that happen with your bones, your muscles, joints, tendons, ligaments. All of those are musculoskeletal injuries, and that happens often in soccer. Obviously, it's very competitive. There's a lot of impact. There's a lot of cutting, and there's a lot of sprinting going on, and can cause injury. Thing is that can cause a result, or I should say, a loss of training time and or game days. And to give you some stats, injuries actually account for more than 70% of time away from sports. That's a lot of time away from playing the thing that you love most. It also, injuries are like almost 1/3 of all injuries in competitive soccer, such as what you guys are doing with ODP, is muscle injuries, so muscle strain or getting hit or knee in the quad, knee in your leg or your quad. That's a muscle injury. And to think of it this way, a team of 25 players at an elite or competitive or elite level, that equals about 15 muscle injuries each season, with approximately 2 weeks of missed time for each injury. That means that's like only on average about 10 healthy players, and we obviously want a little bit more than our 10 healthy players. So what do we do? How do we prevent these injuries? Obviously, nutrition isn't able to keep our athletes completely injury-free, but it can help support and often help speed up your injury recovery. So you won't be out for those 2 weeks per se. If you have that proper nutrition, it can help get you back faster. It is shown that poor nutrition will impair, or like it'll lower the amount of recovery, and it can actually lengthen the amount of time before you come back and play. So if you're not focusing in on what you're eating and drinking, if you're doing a lot of, processed foods and sugary drinks and things like that, that can actually take, those 2 weeks can build out to 3 to 4 weeks before you're back and playing the game that you love. So let's dive in deeper on how to help with that. We're going to focus on nutrition, return to play. And we want to focus in on supporting muscle protein synthesis, so keeping those muscles building, preserving the muscle mass you have, and then maintaining that energy balance, so making sure your energy levels are still nice and up there. You need to have that energy because it's your body's working hard to repair that injury spot. And then also helping to prevent body fat accrual. So you don't want to gain a bunch of weight when you're injured, and then trying to come back and play. That's going to be a bit harder on you and on your body. So these are some infographics, or just kind of like some tables that we're going to kind of dive through. And this is from the Collegiate and Professional Sports Dietitians Association. And I think they do a really great job diving into kind of like what you're looking for. And you're going to notice this is a lot like recovery. First for nutrition, you want to focus in on protein. Protein is going to help that injury with injury prevention, but also to recover faster from that injury. It helps the athlete or our soccer players here to heal and repair that muscle mass. And focusing in once again on that protein that has that leucine content in it. So having that amino acid leucine in there is really, really great. You want to make sure that your meals actually when you're injured, you want to eat a little bit more protein than you usually do. Anywhere between 20 to 40 grams of protein per meal. So increasing that protein, looking for, and the types you're looking for, quickly digestible, high leucine protein. So that's that whey protein. That's also, like cheddar cheese. Those lean meats are really, really good examples. And then when you're about to go to bed, that's that slower digested protein. So that's that cottage cheese or that Greek yogurt can really help you recover from that injury. Then there's the carbohydrates. Obviously, this unique to each scenario, but carbs you still want to make sure to get in because you want your body to use carbs for fuel, so your protein can focus in on healing and repairing that tissue. If you don't eat enough carbohydrates, your body's going to use that protein as fuel instead of looking to repair those muscles. So when you are injured, though, you want to have lots of protein, and that's where you have a little bit less carbohydrates. So maybe that meal, instead of having half that plate, having carbohydrates a little bit less when you're injured because you're not playing as much. And then you really want to focus in on whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. Then there's fat. You do want fat, especially when you are injured. That's because fat, especially healthy or like better for you fats, are essential for healing and then recovery, and also can decrease inflammation. We're going to talk a little bit about inflammation in the body, and that happens when you get injured. Focusing in on those anti-inflammatory fats, so the nuts and nut butters, seeds, avocado, that oily fish, flaxseed, and omega-3 fatty acid fish oil. We'll be diving a little bit on omega-3 here, but we'll be talking a lot more about omega-3 fatty acids because we will be talking this next webinar about some supplements, because supplements are huge in the sports world, and it's important to know what you're looking into there. Some things that are called pro-inflammatories, so can cause you more inflammation, is omega-6 fatty acids. That's coming from vegetable oils, saturated trans fat. So think of like the highly processed foods, fast foods, things like that. Those tend to have a lot of omega-6 fatty acids. So you want to not eat as much as those. You really want to focus in on those omega-3 fatty acids. That's going to help get you recovered quicker, faster from that injury. So a couple of vitamins and minerals to focus in on when you're injured is vitamin C, vitamin A, and vitamin D. These are all really great vitamins. They tend to help with your immune system, so helping you keep healthy and not get as sick as often. Also helping with that wound healing, so if you get scraped up from that turf or from that field, can help heal faster. And then also just helping with bone health, tissue repair. And vitamin C, that's coming from like citrus fruits, oranges, lemons, limes, peppers, cantaloupe. Vitamin A, think of red and orange fruits and vegetables, sweet potatoes, carrots, tomatoes, but also spinach. Then vitamin D, that comes from sun exposure, so being outside without sunscreen on for about 15 minutes can help with that vitamin D. Oily fish, dairy products, things like that. Those are really great, especially when you are injured. And then there's minerals such as calcium, magnesium, zinc, and copper. These are really important when it comes to bone health, immune health, and tissue repair. Magnesium and zinc are crucial for that kind of stuff. And these just kind of give you some calciums, really important when it comes, or like in dairy products and helping for bone health, of course. And obviously fortified orange juice. Magnesium, it's in a lot of nuts and seeds, but also green vegetables. Zinc is found in a lot of animal meats, so lean beef, crab meat, chicken, and also some nuts and seeds, and then also fortified cereal. And then copper can actually help with your red blood cells. You want to have more of those because that increases the amount of oxygen in your body, so it helps you to run faster and further, and you can breathe a lot better when you have a lot of red blood cells, and copper can help with that. That's in a lot of nuts and seeds, and then also in shiitake mushrooms. So you want to be having these when you're playing just in general, but also when you're getting back from injury and thinking return to play. Okay, so lastly, we're going to be diving in here on exercise-induced inflammation. What does that mean? Well, exercise-induced inflammation is your body's response to injury due to intense physical activity. So think of if you sprain your ankle per se, your immune system response is to your ankle gets swollen, it gets red, it's hot, and it also is painful. That is inflammation. That's actually what's called acute inflammation, which acute means short inflammation, and that's your body's response. That's totally normal. But if you don't focus in on recovering from that, it can become prolonged, or what we call chronic inflammation. And what prolonged inflammation can do if you're not careful is it can cause you to become very fatigued or tired, muscle damage, and soreness. You'll be sore for a lot longer time if your body is constantly inflamed. And it can also cause a limited muscle growth or training progression and increased muscle loss. So what that means is your muscles are not growing as strong or as strong and as big as you're wanting them to, and you're not able to train as hard as you want to because your body is just really tired and it's inflamed. Proper nutrition, once again, can really focus in on that recovery, reducing that soreness and keeping that inflammation down. So, like we were already talking about, but drinking those fluids during exercise and after, getting that protein consumption, focusing in on those omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 is anti-inflammatory, so that helps to having those fatty fishes at least twice a week. So think salmon, tuna, mackerel, but also having those nuts and seeds. So walnuts, flaxseed, chia seed, those tend to have omega-3 fatty acids in them. And then getting what's called antioxidants in there, so that will help keeping your body nice and strong, and that's through those vitamins and minerals, such as vitamin C, vitamin E, and A. That comes through a lot of fruits and vegetables, so that's why we say eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And then there's a couple of things that are new and are specifically for our athletes. So tart cherry juice. It is actually literally very tart. So just pouring a little bit in a little glass and shooting it kind of like you would like some cough syrup or medicine, or just adding a little bit of regular juice in there to kind of help it. Tart cherry juice has been found to maintain muscle strength and reduce muscle pain. So it's been found to help with recovery for our athletes. So, and you can buy tart cherry juice in the juice or section at Raley's. And then also optimizing vitamin D, like we were saying, having that fatty fish, eating egg yolks, so eating that whole egg, not just the egg white, or fortified dairy products, something that says fortified with vitamin D, eggs, dairy products, even like almond milks, things like that will be fortified with vitamin D. Then there's experimenting with nitric oxide or nitrates. Nitrates, these are naturally occurring. They're already found in celery, green leafy greens, and beets. So there's a lot of beet powder out there, or beet juices. And what nitric oxide has been found to do is increase your blood flow, or essentially help your recovery. So there's a lot of beet juices or beet powders out there. They're pretty earthy tasting, so but has been found to help with athletes as well. And then, looking at certain herbs and spices to keep your inflammation down. So for our parents, cooking with ginger or turmeric, which is the yellow curry, garlic, and then having cinnamon, rosemary. Those are all great ways to keep our inflammation down, keep our athletes going hard and strong. And so with that, if we have any questions, that would be great. We have been recording, so we will be able to pass this out afterwards. You don't have to be furiously writing notes throughout. All this information will be passed out to everyone. And obviously you're able to contact us at any time when you're wondering a little bit more. So do we have any questions tonight? We don't. So all right. Let us know. We will be having our next webinar here in a couple weeks, and we will be diving in deeper when it comes to supplements for our soccer and sports nutrition topic of the day. So I will see you next time. Bye.